Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily, the first English news program in Poland. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, returned to Poland on May 3rd to give a speech expected to signal his return to Polish politics. Ahead of the speech, the editor-in-chief of the Liberty newspaper, Leszek Ziejewski, took to the stage and attacked the Polish Catholic Church. Representatives of the Polish government are now responding to the growing anti-clerical tendencies growing within the Polish center-left.
The Catholic Church in Poland, loaded with many unexplained child sexual abuse scandals, lost its role as the conscience of the nations. Nowadays, many black magicians try to get the souls of Poles by using spells and manipulations. But the fight with them doesn't make any sense, because when you fight with a pig in the mire, after a few hours you'll only find that the pig likes it.
The editor-in-chief of the Liberta newspaper, Leszek Jażdżewski's speech, is seen as yet another act of aggression towards the Catholic Church. The leader of the Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczyński, responded to his speech.
The Church is also a depository of the important values for people, even for atheists. Whoever raises their hand to strike the Church raises their hand towards Poland.
The Civic Platform Party cut itself off the Jażdżewski statement. The spokesman of the party, Jan Grabiec, stated that the form of this speech was unacceptable, but explains it by saying that it's a result of the crisis of this institution at the same time.
There are bishops who say that the tolerance should be soft. If we're talking about some sort of crusade against the Church, which the Church don't know how to fight, then I'm afraid that the Church will lose its authority.
The member of the Kukiz 15 movement, Agnieszka Ścigaj, said that she doesn't understand this line of thinking. The fact that the Catholic Church admits to its mistakes is a sign of maturity. The Church is a community. All the people create the Church. We can't look at the whole community because of the mistakes of some people. According to the Minister of Interior and Administration, Joachim Brudziński, the Jażdżewski speech was a part of Donald Tusk's hate campaign.
I want to ask for one thing. Don't take part in the circus. We should do what we think is right. Let them fight wherever they want.
The latest happenings have shown that the aggression against the Catholic Church is a political fuel which many political parties use before the upcoming European Parliament elections. Everything indicates that the same strategy will be used before the Polish Parliament elections scheduled in the fall.
The Prime Minister of Poland, Mateusz Morawiecki, addressed the demands by the U.S. government and Jewish NGOs toward Poland concerning World War II reparations on Twitter today. In the tweet, the Prime Minister worded strong opposition against Poland paying reparations for heirless Jewish property to Jewish NGOs.
Poles should have every right to be proud of their history, heritage, culture, and to celebrate under the white and red flag. We remember the tragic fate of the Polish nation during the Second World War, so there will be no agreement from us concerning the reparations.
This year's European Parliament election is highlighted by the active participation of the Deputy Chairman of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans, who appeared to have sided with the political campaign of the European Coalition Opposition Party in Poland. The Dutch politician stated that he is supporting the forces of reason in Poland, referring to Robert Biedron's Spring and the Democratic Left Alliance parties.
It's not the first time the Deputy Chairman of the European Commission responsible for assessing the rule of law in European countries has taken on an active role in a Polish political campaign. A month ago, Frans Timmermans met with the Spring Party leader Robert Biedroń, and tomorrow he'll be taking part in a debate about the future of the EU. Among other politicians attending, there will be the former President of Poland, Aleksander Kwaśniewski, and Leszek Miller, the former leader of the Democratic Left Alliance Party. Following the debate, Deputy Chairman Timmermans is to hand out flyers at the Castle Square in Warsaw, encouraging Poles to vote for the European coalition.
Pan Timmermans teraz, wspierając czy to Włodzimierza Cimoszewicza.
Mr. Timmermans, by supporting Włodzimierz Cimoszewicz or Mr. Czarzasty, has finally shown his true colors and where his allegiances lie. He's supporting the leftovers of the communist totalitarian regime, and I think it's good that he stopped pretending he's not politically involved in Poland's affairs. Of course, he's doing that to build his own position in the EU. As it turns out, Mr. Timmermans never understood the communist regime. He sees no absurdity in talking about the respect for democracy and at the same time supporting those who serve Moscow.
Ludzi służących Moskwie.
It seems Mr. Timmermans has no idea who the communists were and what was post-communism. They weren't democratic, they were the exact opposite. By supporting such politicians, he's only disrupting the democratic processes in Poland, and that unfortunately says a lot about the current state of the EU. However, Franz Timmermans' help does not come for free. If politicians of the Left Democratic Alliance get into the European Parliament, they are to join the European Socialists, Franz Timmermans' party. The European Parliament elections are to take place on May 26. Polls will be choosing 52 MEPs.
The European elections will take place in less than 3 weeks, and the electoral campaign is picking up pace. One of the leaders of the nationalist camp, leader of the French National Rally, Marine Le Pen, is calling on the ruling parties in Poland and Hungary to join her party group, the ENF, following the election.
The German candidate of the European People's Party for president of the European Commission, Manfred Weber, was campaigning today in the city of Hanover. Austrian Prime Minister Sebastian Kurz was also there to support him. Manfred Weber argued that it's important to not let nationalist forces rule Europe.
This Europe in which we are allowed to live today is a Europe that we have built. It is our Europe. It is a Christian democratic, Christian, social Europe, and ahead of the 2019 election, I want to say I will do everything I can to defend this Europe, and I will not allow nationalists to ruin this Europe. We are going to preserve it. It belongs to us.
Sebastian Kurz stated that Weber is the right man to lead Europe.
Manfred ist einer, der die Fraktion zusammenhält, der
Manfred holds the parliamentary group together. He leads the way of the parliamentary group, and he is someone who somehow has a similar influence on all the different people's parties. And that, I find, speaks of his European mindset. And that is why I am convinced that he is the right one.
überzeugt, dass auch der Richtige ist.
Meanwhile, Marine Le Pen was a special guest at the campaign rally of the Belgian right-wing populist party Vlaams Belang. She stated that the European nationalist forces are about to form the so-called supergroup in the European Parliament and that the ruling parties of Hungary and Poland are invited. If Mr. Orban joins our group, all the better. But even if he doesn't, the supergroup will exist with or without him. It's up to Orban to see if he finds himself more in political coherence with members of the European People's Party who voted against him, who voted for the forced relocation of migrants to all EU countries, and who vote systematically for more power to the European Union and less power for nations. Le Pen also acknowledged that the ruling Polish party Law and Justice are unlikely to join the group due to a different stance on Russia, but claimed that it shouldn't be an obstacle for cooperation. We see that the Poland's ruling Law and Justice Party has the will to retain the leadership of their group in the European Parliament, but beyond these negotiations related to political organizations, the offer is on the table so we can constitute the very large group that we hope to form in the European Parliament. If Poland does not wish to have strong diplomatic relations with Russia, no one forces it to do so. But if Italy and France wish to have stronger strategic relations with Russia, we are free to do so. I believe that these discrepancies that may exist and that are the result of history must not have consequences on the possibility of the constitution of this very large group in the European Parliament. The results of the European elections will be in on May 26th, but it will take another couple of months before the new party groups are formed.
That's it for today. See you next time on Poland Daily. But stay tuned for the Poland Daily Weather Report, followed by the Poland Daily Business section.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Adlerstein and welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Let's see what will happen tonight at first. So only 1 degree will be seen in Olsztyn, but up to 7 degrees in the southern parts of the country tonight. Rzeszów, Krakow, Katowice will see 7 degrees, 2 degrees, so also quite cool in the area of Koszalin and Szczecin, and showers will be appearing around Rzeszów, Krakow and Katowice. Now let's check the forecast for tomorrow. So tomorrow in Poland, nice and sunny in the southern parts of the country, but much cooler in Białystok, 11 degrees, 10 degrees in Olsztyn, Gdańsk and Koszalin, with showers appearing as well. Łódź and Warsaw will be also quite nice and sunny, 14 degrees in Warsaw and 15 degrees in Łódź. Now let's see the forecast for the upcoming days. On Tuesday, up to 18 degrees in the southwest part of the country. On Wednesday, 18 degrees will be also the maximum in central Poland. And on Thursday, up to 20 degrees, and the minimum will be 15 in the northwest. This is all for tonight. Thank you. See you very soon.
And our guest tonight is Bernard Otterstein, President of Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Poland. Sir, thank you for coming to the Poland Daily Business Edition.
Thank you.
Well, actually, what is the relation between Poland and Canada right now in the economic dimension?
Well, in general, the relations between Canada and Poland are excellent in every way. And economically, there's no difference. It's really, really good.
Can we name the Canadian companies that are operating in Poland and bringing benefits, and the Polish companies that are doing business in Canada?
Well, certainly there are some big names. I mean, I'll mention a few. We have here Pratt & Whitney Canada, we have MB Aerospace, we have Bombardier, big companies, McCain and others in the high-tech and IT and transportation sectors. As well as food processing and other things. And then we have, on the other hand, some Polish companies in mining and energy, such as KGHM and Orlen Upstream, who are acquiring assets in Canada and expanding their resource base, which is an important thing on the upstream side or on the resource side for Polish companies that need to get some of the benefits of Canada's resource base.
Right. Canada is a unique place in the world, huge natural resources,
Exactly.
friendly atmosphere and nice place. Poland, as a part of European Union, has a very special relationship with Canada, and the law is the same from Canadian point of view here as in Germany or in France. Is Poland for Canadian business a little bit more interesting than other countries?
Well, Poland has something that other countries don't have in Europe right now, and that is a lot of talented young people, an incredible resource in that sense. Something that Poland is outstanding for at this time in the world are its people and their abilities, and that's something that I think few other countries in Europe can offer to that extent right now. So Poland certainly has big advantages for Canadian and for a lot of other international companies because of the skills and the abilities and the motivation of its people.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's say in the international trade, the services and goods are the things that we measure to say what is the atmosphere, what is the level of relationships. What Polish companies can offer to the Canadian economy?
I think that Polish companies can offer quite a lot, especially since Canada and the European Union signed the comprehensive agreement on comprehensive economic and trade agreement last year. It's in provisional force, but it allows Polish companies not only to export their products to Canada, which can be very attractive, those products, because Canada doesn't have perhaps all of the things that Poland has in terms of innovative new products that small and medium-sized Polish companies are producing. On the other hand, Polish companies can also participate in procurement opportunities with Canadian government bodies, from the municipal to the provincial to the federal level. And they can participate on an equal footing with Canadian companies in many sectors. So that's something very interesting. That's a service perhaps or a product offering, but public tenders are open for Polish and for all European companies in Canada
Do you know any examples of Polish companies taking active part in tenders in Canada?
Not recently, but I do know some historical cases of Polish companies building bridges, for example, in Canada. But I could imagine that Polish companies could really engage in a lot of service opportunities.
So this famous Polish hydraulic or Polish plumber can go from France to Canada.
Yeah, he certainly can. But there's an ocean in between, and so the distance is longer for smaller operators. It's more an opportunity for bigger companies, I think. But having said that, I think there are also the opportunities for exporters and other SMEs to take advantage of the CETA opportunity.
Right. Well, we are. Very soon there will be hot summer and vacations, at least in Poland and in Canada, by the way, at the same time. Is there growing touristic movement between Poland and Canada? Like Poles are going for vacation to Canada?
That's difficult to gauge right now. However, the interest in Canada has always been strong from the Polish side. As you probably know, we have about 1 million Polish Canadians.
Right,
so
but there's like historical reasons.
The historical ties are strong, and a lot of Poles actually travel to Canada to visit their relatives. And I think that tourism from Poland to Canada is in many ways related to that. But I have heard of a lot of people actually going now just to see Canada's natural sights and wonders, which are really, really amazing.
Or sail on the big lakes instead of crowded Missouri. You can take the lakes in Canada.
The beauty of the Canadian wilderness is that you can enjoy it by yourself or in a small group of people with nature, and that's something that's perhaps unusual in Europe.
But you have to take a gun to the forest.
I actually never have, but it's easy to come into contact with wild animals such as bears, and you have to be careful.
Yeah, because they may not understand your jokes.
They may not understand Polish, for example, or other strange activities.
Bernard Otterstein, Polish Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Poland. Thank you very much, sir, for coming to our tiny show, and hopefully you will come next time to talk about more specific businesses that are definitely developing between our countries.
Yes, there's a lot to talk about. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you've seen Poland Daily Business Edition. And join us next time.
Good evening, welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Let's see what will happen tomorrow in Poland. So up to 18 degrees in the area of Krakow, Katowice, also in Wrocław, 15 degrees in Poznań, Zielona Góra and Łódź. Very nice and sunny in the southern parts of the country. 14 degrees will be seen in Warsaw, but only 10 around Olsztyn, Gdańsk and Koszalin with showers as well. Now let's check the forecast in Europe for tomorrow. So tomorrow in Europe, nice and sunny. For example, around Rome in Italy, 19 degrees. Also Madrid and Lisbon, of course, very nice and warm, up to 28 degrees in Madrid. But much cooler if we look at the northern parts like Stockholm, 9 degrees, 5 degrees in Oslo with showers as well, and a bit warmer in Helsinki, up to 10 degrees Celsius. 11 degrees will be seen in Dublin, 15 in London and 16 in Paris with sun and clouds. This is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
It was first built between 1671 and 1679 by Stanisław Heraclius Lubomirski to designs by the Dutch architect Tilman van Gameren. This complex included a garden. The town had passed to the Sieniawski family by 1706, when the palace and its surroundings were destroyed by Swedish troops during the Great Northern War. Reconstruction began under Elżbieta Sieniawska in 1722. Soon afterwards, Maria Zofia Czartoryska married August Alexander Czartoryski, and between 1731 and 1736, they built a new Rococo palace on the site to designs by Jan Zygmunt Dejbel. At the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries, Puławy was the center of political, cultural, and literary life. It happened thanks to Adam Kazimierz Czartoryski and his wife Isabella from Fleming, who brought the most outstanding artists, Jan Piotr Norblin, writers, Julian Ursin Nimcewicz, and architects, Christian Piotr Eigner, to the Puławski court. It was here, in the Temple of Sibyl of 1801 and the Gothic House of 1809, that the Duchess created the first museum in Poland. It has become the nucleus of a great collection cultivated to this day. At the end of the November uprising, the Czartoryski property was confiscated, and the Czartoryski family emigrated to Paris. In Puławy, the Alexandria Institute for the Education of Maidens was established, and subsequently the Polytechnic and Agricultural Forestry Institute and the Institute of Rural Land and Forests. Currently, the owner of the palace and park complex is the Institute of Soil Science.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. Today we're in Puławy at the Czartoryski Palace, and my guest will be the director of the museum, Mrs. Honorata Mielniczenko. Dzień dobry. Hello and welcome.
Dzień dobry, witam Państwa.
Rok 2019. The year 2019 is the year of Princess Izabela Czartoryska. Could you perhaps tell us more about the celebrations that will take place this year? Muzeum.
Muzeum Czartoryskich w Puławach ogłosiło rok 2019.
The Czartoryski Museum in Puławy has announced the year 2019 as the year of Princess Izabela. On June 29th, a nationwide scientific conference dedicated to Princess Izabela Czartoryska and her multi-directional activity will be held. The conference is called Dux Femina Facti, which means a woman, the commander of a glorious act.
W ten sposób chcemy podkreślić działalność księżnej Izabeli, jej wielkie zasługi.
By this name, we want to emphasize the activities of Princess Izabela, her great merits. Let's not forget that she is the creator of the first Polish National Museum, and she chose the city of Puławy as a place to commemorate Poland. In 1801, the opening of the first museum building, also called the Sanctuary of Sibylla, in which she collected many valuable things that belonged to great national heroes or found after great glorious and victorious battles.
Został otwarty drugi budynek muzealny, zwany domem.
The second museum building, called the Gothic House, was opened in 1809. This year's conference and celebrations are closely related to the year 1809. At that time, the victorious army of Prince Józef Poniatowski was stationed in Puławy, and at the same time, the Gothic House was opened thanks to Princess Izabela. The world's masterpieces, like The Lady with Ermine, Landscape of the Good Samaritan, or Never Found Rachel's Portrait of a Young Man, were in the Gothic House in Puławy.
Oraz zaginiony, do dnia dzisiejszego nieodnaleziony portret młodzieńca Rafaela.
Can we see these paintings in the museum? W muzeum?
Portret dam z Gronostajem można oglądać w Muzeum Narodowym w Krakowie.
The portrait of the lady with ermine can be seen in the National Museum in Krakow, as well as the second landscape I have mentioned, so the landscape with the Good Samaritan. Just for the upcoming celebration of Princess Izabela, the paintings, which will be here for the first time in over 200 years, were brought to our museum.
Portret księżnej Izabeli autorstwa Roslina oraz portret.
Among these paintings, we will see a portrait of Princess Izabela painted by Alexander Roslin. Also a portrait called Venus Vectrix, painted by Tosini, which could be seen in the Gothic House, because this building had objects presenting the European art.
Prezentujące sztukę europejską. Kulminacja obchodów roku księżnej Izabeli, która będzie miała miejsce.
The celebrations of the year of Princess Izabela will take place on June 29th and 30th. As I said, the purpose of this initiative is to pay tribute to Princess Izabela Czartoryska.
Miejsce uroczysta procesja, która będzie nawiązywała historycznie do roku 1809. W uroczystym orszaku.
A solemn procession referring historically to the year 1809 will take place on June 30th. Hussars riding on horses, the reconstruction groups ahead with the artists playing Princess Izabela, and the army of the Duchy of Warsaw, all mentioned, will take part in the procession. All inhabitants of the city of Puławy are more than welcome to come and join the celebrations.
Zostały włączone dzieci i młodzież szkolna.
Children and teenagers will prepare copies of museum's objects that could be seen in the Gothic house in the past.
Wcześniej znajdowały się w domu gotyckim.
After the solemn march, the best works will be placed in this place. The actress playing Princess Isabella will be greeting us from the house.
Z balkonu księżna Izabela.
So the entire Poland is involved in preparations to this undertaking?
Polska jak najbardziej zapraszamy wszystkich do wzięcia udziału w tym.
Yes, the entire Poland. Everyone is more than welcome to come and join this great undertaking, which is happening thanks to source texts, diaries, journals, including Mr. Leon Potocki's, who described this great event and which we want to recreate. In 1809, the Polish army, in the lead of Prince Poniatowski, were described by Princess Isabella in her memorial book.
Wpisać się do księgi pamiątkowej założonej przez księżną Izabelę i ta księga.
And this book will appear here in Puławy just for this ceremony, and it will be situated in this hall.
Sali.
Ten sam egzemplarz, który the exact same book?
Z tekstem własnoręcznie pisanym przez księżną, z jej podpisem, z jej inicjałami.
Yes, the exact same copy, signed by the princess with her signature, with her initials. It can be seen in the palace in Puławy during the days of celebrations. A wonderful concert will end these celebrations. It, of course, be dedicated to Princess Isabella. So this beautiful concert will be performed by the representative artistic team of the Polish army with their repertoire, God, Honor, Fatherland. We dedicate it to Princess Izabela Czartoryska.
Z Flemingów Czartoryskiej.
Powiedziała pani, że będzie... You said that the museum's objects will be recreated by children and other people. What kind of objects are they? Które się tu znajdowały, jakie to będą obiekty?
Ze względu na trudność wykonania.
Some objects are very difficult to recreate. The children themselves can choose what they want to do. They started to do some of them by themselves.
Będą to na przykład militaria.
The objects include a scepter, a sword, the Turkish pillows, a box in which Queen Jadwiga's hair will be placed,
w którym będą umieszczone włosy królowej Jadwigi.
The 3rd of May, 1791. A day like any other, except it wasn't a day like any other in Poland, because here, in the building behind me, the Royal Castle in Poland, the great Sejm of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth did something incredible. It adopted a new constitution. The agitation for the constitution, the desire for the constitution, had begun with the election of the new king, Stanisław Augustus, at the Convocation Sejm of 1764. How this became necessary, how it was passed, and what it meant for Poland, we'll be finding out in this programme. I'm Nicholas Richardson, and this is Poland Daily History. We're here in the Senate chamber in the Royal Castle in Warsaw, the room in which the Constitution of the 3rd of May 1791 was passed. We've heard already some of the background leading to the new Constitution, but a key moment was the election of the king, Stanisław Augustus Poniatowski, in 1764. Anna, who was Stanisław Poniatowski and why did he become king?
Stanisław Poniatowski did not come from one of the head Polish noble families, the magnates, at least from his father's side. But it was the mother who came from a very powerful family known as the Czartoryski, who formed a political movement extremely powerful in Poland, which is known as the Familia, the family. So with their support, probably at the beginning, they were not planning for him to become the king. But they wanted him to become a diplomat. So as part of his training, he was sent to different courts across Europe. He visited England, he visited France, and many other countries. And this is where he got somehow infected with the new way that was coming to Europe, enlightenment.
Right, so he was, and yes, I think that's right. He was very influenced, I think, by Enlightenment values, which probably encouraged him to think that maybe as king, he might do something about Poland's
he looked at the
difficult
country.
state.
And he noticed that it still is deeply indulged in the feudal system where you have a ruling caste and then you have serfs who have no rights. This was completely against what was going on in other Western European countries. Also, the changes in France were upcoming, so he was very sensitive to all of that.
I'm right in saying that he, in fact, had been a lover of Catherine the Great in his early life.
Yeah, and he owes it to the British ambassador, in fact. Yes, Sir George Williams became British ambassador to the Russian court in St. Petersburg. And he went there in the early 1750s. Poniatowski became his assistant, or rather secretary, thanks to the help of the family that the ambassador was supporting. And there he was introduced to the German Duchess at the time, Sophie von Albrecht-Herbst. They somehow got to like each other to this extent that they had at least one legitimate child together. After a while, she became the Russian Empress Catherine the Great II, probably the most powerful woman ever to rule in Russia.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Probably one of the most powerful women ever to rule anywhere in Europe. But I think, would you say that because of his Russian connection, or perceived Russian connection, and because he'd been seen to have become king, largely because of the Czartoryskas and the sort of Russian support, that it made his position as king slightly weaker in the sense that he was probably seen as somebody else's puppet?
This is how he was perceived, but I'm not sure if he was sure how much influence Catherine is going to have on him. We probably believe that he had good intentions in the way that he probably believed that she still has some feelings for him, which of course wasn't true. And he thought that by supporting him, she's showing her goodwill towards him. Her aim was to treat him as somebody that is easy to control. So I think that there was a conflict of interest. He had other hopes, she also had other hopes.
I think I'm right in assuming that when he started or thought that he might try to reform the Polish constitutional arrangements, this didn't go down too well with the magnates, who sort of called in, and they were sort of rather opposed to his reformist zeal at that stage.
Yeah, if you look at the first 2 years of his reign, he offended most of the top aristocrats of Poland, and they decided to form a confederation against him.
This was the Radom Confederation.
Exactly, yes. And with their support, or rather them being against him, he ran into political problems and into some sort of a civil war that took place in Poland locally. So it wasn't only the outside, let's say, politicians that were looking at Poland at the time, it was also us ourselves and the king, who was not able to establish good contacts with everyone who he did not believe followed his new ideology or his vision for Poland.
And this, of course, led to essentially the Prussians and the Russians intervening. And this civil war, he lost.
Yes.
This internal war, which enabled Catherine the Great, in this it reflects itself later in history, of course, sort of wanting to protect Polish liberties by, in fact, requiring him to acquiesce in the cardinal laws, which was essentially a restatement of the Golden Liberty. So essentially, his early attempts at reform led Poland back to the very beginning, where an outside power, this time the Russians, is actually saying, well, tough luck. We're going to impose or reimpose or restate the golden liberties or the same things, and you're back where you started. I mean, is that a very
Yeah, exactly.
fair assumption?
And if you were looking at Poland as one of our neighbors, whether it was Prussia or Russia, you would see that the system that functioned in Poland was much easier to control than to have a king who is looking forward to reform the country.
The last thing you wanted, if you were
exactly.
Prussian or Russian, or maybe even Austrian to a certain extent, was a powerful, well-organized Poland on your border, because chaos is great if you're not the country that's suffering from chaos.
Besides, the Libre veto is something that you can buy. You just have to pull the right strings, pay the right money.
So that was really a very disappointing start to. But I think there was worse to come, wasn't there? With some folk, of course, say folk, obviously nobles, didn't really like the fact that the king had acquiesced in Russian involvement and formed the Bar Confederation to try and fight back. But that didn't end very happily either, did it?
No, of course, and especially that they got support from the Empress of Russia, and this, of course, never leads to anything positive. And the king was forced to do whatever they wanted him to do.
And then the defeat of the Bar Confederation set in train events which led to the first partition of Poland.
Yes, and this was something that probably they were not really aware of how strong this change is going to be. We lost a big part of the country.
About 200,000 square kilometers, something like that?
Exactly, and about 4.5 million people who live there. Yes, the country altogether before the partitions was about 11 million. So 4.5 million is definitely losing a lot of territory.
So from the king's point of view, it's actually been a pretty bad first 8 years, seen as some sort of Russian supporter. And not obviously necessarily his own fault, but managed to lose a third of the country in the process.
If you look at all these, let's say, historical events, some people look at them from different perspectives. Others say that he shouldn't have done anything. Maybe this way, Catherine would not notice that something is going on. Maybe he should be taking smaller steps instead of running into some sort of very radical changes. And to some extent they were right, because this is what happened with the establishment of the Polish constitutions in the years to come.
Yes. So there we have it. The king got off to a fairly rocky start, a man of enlightened principles, a man who wanted to try and improve things in Poland, and his first 8 years resulted in him losing a third of the country. A pretty hard act to improve upon. We'll find out later how the king dealt with this, and how Poland actually was able to move forward from this pretty low point.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Poland Daily Travel, where this time we say, head east, young man. We're going in search of Eastern promise to the Białystok region, about 2 hours, give or take a few kilometers, east of Warsaw. This is an area of hidden treasures, castles, palaces, wildlife, and of course water and the great forests. The Brunitsky Palace in the center of Białystok stands out as a Baroque masterpiece, often compared in its own way to a smaller version of Versailles. Then there is the unmissable little fairy tale town of Tykocin. It lies in bucolic splendor astride the Narew River, with its fine church and synagogue and restored castle. It's an undiscovered Baroque jewel. And so we scratched the surface, at least, to tempt you to the wonders of this beautiful and wild region of Poland. We know you're going to really enjoy these episodes. So stay tuned as Poland Daily takes you to the Białystok region, in the far east of Poland. Visit our Poland Daily Live page and subscribe to all our great programs. Thanks for watching. Łukasz, who is this guy? He's looking at me in a very strange way.
Yeah, he's very scary. It's Lenin.
That's what?
Lenin.
Like the musician?
No, not the Lennon.
No.
Lenin.
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 Good Lord, he doesn't look like he likes me very much. No story of palaces in Poland is complete without a trip from the sublime to the ridiculous, or the absurd, which would be communism. Yes. In the old days, before '89 and after the war. But there's a particular significance with the palace and communism. What happened in 1920 here?
In 1920, Marchlewski, Dzierżyński and Kohn stand on the balcony and told it's gonna be great revolution and it's gonna and from Białystok they go for Warsaw, and all we know that we win this battle and we defend all Europe from communism.
Right. Of course, they were stopped because this was the time of the 1920-21 war, and they were stopped on the Wisła,
yes,
and other places too, by Marshal Piłsudski and the Polish army. But this was a takeover. They thought they were really going to take over Europe, right all the way through Germany to the sea, didn't
yes.
they? Yeah.
Yes.
But they didn't do it, did they?
Yes, luckily for us.
Good Lord. Yeah. This is, so they made this very important speech right here.
Yes. Yes.
On the balcony in the front of the palace.
Yes.
It's incredible, isn't it? To think that all of the things that this building has seen from the beginning with the Branickis, when it was a castle before then,
yes.
and then the building of the palace, and then the selling to the Prussians, the selling to the Russians.
The school, then
the school that was here. You said
the First World War, Second World War, and
yeah,
all
the destruction.
Yes,
the changing from kingdom to republic to occupation to
People's Republic in Poland
to the eventual communist.
Yes,
yeah.
And today Palace is beautiful. It's a witness of history.
Yeah, so we can be sure that although people may not like some things about the times in which we live, and there are certainly things to be unhappy or at least complain about, overall, we don't have to deal with this guy.
Yes, yes, it's
if we at least if there's anything we can do about it, what we hope. Yeah.
Yes.
We don't hope we work for that. Yeah.
Yes, we work for the future, and this is
and that's the past.
That's the past, yeah. But we can't forget about it.
We can't forget because it can come back to bite you, can't it? The yes. past. That's the point. So by studying, I guess what we need to know, and you're an historian particularly of this area. So the thing for us to remember is that times change, but you must be aware yes. of what's happened before, so that it doesn't happen again.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. It's a good lesson for us.
Yeah. Ugh. I like to look at this guy. Oh. Hey, Poland Daily Travel. We're in the basement underneath the Branickis Palace, and we're going to go back upstairs into the sunshine. It'll be welcome after hanging around with him. See you later.
Put it this way, we do not play on the resentments of those who remember the times of the People's Republic of Poland, the PRL, because this film would only then be addressed to people at least 40 years old. This film is directed to people who did not live in the People's Republic of Poland, and to those who have no memory of it. Here we're trying to give them an opportunity to decode or understand the specific attributes of communism. The previous political system in Poland was as alien to contemporary viewers as perhaps life on Mars, or even, let's say, something as strange as ancient Greece. For those who were born after 1989, as well as for those who remember the period of building so-called real socialism, going back to the 60s, 70s, or 80s of the last century, this is a journey to an absurd and frankly astonishing reality. With that said, are you ready? These are not kids. This is not a general strike, nor is it a parade for equality or equal rights. It is a parade on the occasion of May 1st, the emanation of the power of the working people, workers, white-collar workers, school children, students, peasants, you name it. Did you think it didn't hurt? Not entirely. Participation in the parade was obligatory. You had no choice. If you didn't come without a really serious excuse, you might look out for what would happen. You could be dismissed from work, you could be expelled from school or the university, or given the so-called wolf ticket, basically a ticket to the wilderness. However, those who attended the May 1st parade could be sure that after marching under the honorary stand with the highest members of the Polish United Workers' Party and waving into the crowd as a reward, they would be able to drink beer, a commodity that was rather inaccessible to everyday notions what life should be like. Sometimes on the May holiday, they also served something really rare, Vienna sausages with mustard, but that was not all the time and not everywhere. The Białystok population was exceptionally unlucky with Vienna sausages. They hardly ever made the grade. As a consolation, you could buy ice cream in the city. That's right. In 1974, it was best to buy ice cream in a newly opened ice cream parlor. That's right. Exceptional. And who cared about Vienna sausages at that point? At school and at university, there were hard socialist rules. Antics were severely punished. Be careful what you did. Unless the pedagogical group was very careful, you could run into all kinds of trouble. Every student, high school and otherwise, went on a company holiday for at least a month to gain work experience. The state valued heavy physical work. The intelligentsia had to at least symbolically get their hands dirty. From time to time, on days off but not on holidays, only Sundays were free in those days, social activities were organized. All in all, it was some kind of entertainment. There was only one public television in the country. Public television broadcast only 2 programs. The first channel, which was on Saturday afternoon between early afternoon and midnight, and the second channel, even more modest, because they only broadcast a few hours a day. Every third household had a TV set. Until 1971, the picture was always black and white. During the transitional period, 3 color plates appeared to be placed on the screen. And finally, in 1973, the picture on the TV set became completely colored. It should be mentioned that it was usually a Soviet-built set. Be assured there were no shopping malls, but PDTs, that's State Department stores, with perfectly empty shelves or hangers, depending on where you looked, were the norm. As soon as something appeared for sale, huge throngs gathered and stood in line to see what they could see, and perhaps get lucky acquiring one of those mysterious things on offer. But by the time they reached the counter, it was all gone anyway. As you can see, people didn't care too much. Free Saturdays began to be introduced gradually from 1973. First there were 2 in a year, then there were 4, and permanent Free Saturdays did not appear until 1989. So you didn't have to work on Saturday or Sunday. Comfortable cars packed with electronics. Forget it. The most luxurious car you could dream of was the Serena 104. And that wasn't just for anyone either. It was designed for the elite, work leaders, activists, scientists, and other members of the intelligentsia. It had a very simple construction so that you could repair it at home. After 1973, it was replaced with the Fiat 126, the so-called toddler, or the small Fiat. It was called the Bambino in Italy. In 1979, Białystok was first visited by Edward Gierek. He was the most important man in the People's Republic of Poland because he was the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Polish United Workers' Party. The aim of his visit was to keep up the spirits of the party activists in the locality and to show citizens that the party was interested in the affairs of ordinary people. Of course they were. The secretary visited Białystok University of Technology and met with leading farmers from the Monkey commune. Edward Gierek was, we can say, not a specialist in spiritual matters. Ordinary people had to fend for themselves. They did not have a signed agreement with the party or anyone when it came to personal matters. So if you wanted to be in agreement with both the authorities and with God, you had to get married twice. Once in the registry office for the proper papers, and the second time in the church to guarantee eternal life, or at least the prospect of it. Interestingly, getting married in church was somewhat frowned upon by the authorities. Ostracism by those in power was directly proportional to the weight of the position the married person held. When Pope John Paul II came to visit Poland in 1991, works on the Concordat were in progress, and times had already changed. Despite the fact that the first mobile phones would appear in Poland only several years after this visit, the Pope was able to announce his visit on the internet. In fact, the number of users of the internet in Poland in 1992 must have exceeded 2,000 people, that is. This short guide to the times of the People's Republic of Poland was possible thanks to Marian Kuleza, a citizen of Białystok,